So far, we have learned about Plato's academy and the important characters in his dialogues. Now we come to one of the most powerful teaching methods in the history of education, the Socratic dialectic. This is not just a method of asking questions. It is a systematic process of discovering truth. Even today, law schools, philosophy classes, medical colleges, and many universities around the world use this method because it teaches students how to think, not simply what to think. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. No one becomes an expert simply by reading a book about cycling. You learn by trying, making mistakes, correcting yourself, and trying again. Similarly, Socrates believed that true knowledge comes through questioning, correcting mistakes, and gradually reaching the truth. This slide shows the 3 stages of the Socratic dialectic. Let us understand each stage carefully. Stage 1. Elenchus, refutation. The first stage is called elenchus. The word elenchus simply means testing an idea through careful questioning. This is where Socrates begins the conversation. He asks a person to define an important concept. For example, he may ask, "What is justice?" The other person confidently answers, "Justice means telling the truth." Instead of accepting the answer immediately, Socrates asks another question. What if telling the truth harms an innocent person? The person begins to think. Then Socrates asks another question. Is telling the truth always justice? Slowly, the person realizes that the original definition is incomplete. Notice something important. Socrates is not trying to embarrass anyone. His purpose is to remove false ideas. Imagine a doctor treating an infected wound. Before applying medicine, the doctor first cleans the wound. If the infection remains, the medicine cannot work properly. Similarly, Socrates first removes false beliefs before introducing true knowledge. That is why the slide compares him to a midwife. A midwife does not create the baby. She helps bring the baby into the world. Likewise, Socrates believed that truth already exists within the human mind. His questions simply help people discover it. This process is called maieutic, which literally means the art of midwifery. Instead of giving knowledge, Socrates helps knowledge be born. Stage 2. Aporia, confusion. Now we come to the second stage. This stage is called aporia. Aporia means a state of confusion or intellectual puzzlement. At first, confusion may sound like something negative. But for Socrates, confusion was actually a sign of progress. Why? Because a person who believes they know everything will never try to learn. But a person who realizes, "I don't actually know the answer," becomes ready to learn. Imagine a student solving a mathematics problem. The student confidently writes the answer. Then the teacher asks, "Can you explain how you reached this answer?" Suddenly the student realizes that they cannot explain it. At that moment, the student understands that they do not fully know the concept. This realization is not failure. It is the beginning of real learning. Socrates often brought people to this stage. The slide compares this to the stingray effect. Why? A stingray gives an electric shock that temporarily paralyzes its victim. Similarly, Socrates' questions shocked people's confidence. They suddenly became silent because they realized that many of their beliefs were unsupported. Instead of pretending to know everything, they became humble learners. This humility is essential for gaining wisdom. Remember one of Socrates' most famous statements, "I know that I know nothing." This does not mean Socrates knew absolutely nothing. It means he understood the limits of his own knowledge. Recognizing our ignorance is the first step toward wisdom. Stage 3. Psychagogia, soul-leading. Now we reach the final stage. This stage is called psychagogia. The word literally means leading the soul or guiding the mind toward truth. Once false ideas have been removed and the learner becomes humble, Socrates begins helping them build true understanding. This is where real education takes place. Think of building a house. Before constructing a strong building, weak walls must be removed. Only then can a stronger foundation be laid. Similarly, Stage 1 removes false ideas. Stage 2 creates intellectual humility. Stage 3 builds true knowledge based on logic and careful reasoning. For example, after showing that justice cannot simply mean telling the truth, Socrates gradually guides the learner toward a deeper understanding. He explains that justice is connected with wisdom, goodness, and harmony. The student does not memorize this definition. The student understands it because they discovered it step by step. Knowledge gained through personal discovery remains much longer than knowledge learned through memorization. That is why Socrates believed questioning was far more effective than lecturing. Why is the Socratic dialectic important? Now let us understand why this method became so influential. Plato believed that most people live according to opinions. They accept ideas because their parents told them, society believes them, or tradition teaches them. But opinions are not always true. Truth must be examined carefully. The Socratic dialectic transforms people from passive listeners into active thinkers. Instead of asking, "What should I believe?" it teaches us to ask, "Why should I believe this?" This habit of questioning protects people from ignorance, blind belief, and manipulation. It develops critical thinking, logical reasoning, and intellectual honesty. Even today, teachers encourage students to ask questions because genuine learning begins with curiosity. Conclusion. This slide presents the complete cycle of the Socratic dialectic. First comes elenchus, where false beliefs are tested and challenged through questioning. Next comes aporia, where learners recognize the limits of their own knowledge and become intellectually humble. Finally comes psychagogia, where the teacher guides the learner toward genuine understanding based on reason and truth. For Plato, education was never about filling the mind with information. It was about transforming the mind itself. The Socratic dialectic was the engine that made this transformation possible, turning ordinary opinions into carefully examined knowledge and preparing individuals to become wise, rational, and morally responsible citizens. So far, we have understood how Socrates searched for truth through questioning. But now Plato asks a much deeper question. Is learning even possible? At first, this sounds like a strange question. Of course learning is possible. We learn something every day. But Plato wanted to examine learning from a philosophical point of view. He asks, how do we learn something that we do not already know? This question leads us to one of Plato's most fascinating ideas, the paradox of inquiry. This slide has two parts. On the left is Meno's paradox. On the right is the doctrine of recollection. The second idea is Plato's answer to the first. Let us understand both carefully. Part 1. Meno's paradox. This paradox comes from Plato's dialogue called Meno. In this dialogue, one of the characters asks Socrates a very clever question. He says, if you already know something, there is no need to search for it. That makes sense. If you already know the answer, why search? But then he asks another question. If you do not know something at all, how will you even begin searching for it? Think about it. Suppose someone asks you to find an object whose name, shape, color, size, and purpose you have never heard of. Could you search for it? No, because you don't even know what you are looking for. Then Meno asks an even more difficult question. Even if you accidentally find it, how will you know that it is the thing you were searching for? This creates a serious problem. If you know, you don't need to search. If you don't know, you cannot search. Therefore, learning seems impossible. This is called Meno's paradox. At first, this argument seems impossible to answer. Imagine entering a huge library. Someone tells you, find a book. You ask, what is the title? They say, I won't tell you. You ask, who wrote it? No. What color is the cover? No. What subject is it? No. Would you ever find that book? Probably not. This is exactly the problem Meno presents. Plato's answer. The doctrine of recollection. Now Plato gives his answer. He says, learning is actually remembering. This idea is called the doctrine of recollection, or theory of recollection. According to Plato, every human being has an immortal soul. Before we were born, our souls existed in a higher world. Remember the world of forms that we discussed earlier? Plato believed the soul lived in that perfect world before entering the human body. There, the soul directly saw perfect truth. It knew perfect beauty. It knew perfect justice. It knew perfect goodness. It possessed knowledge of all the eternal forms. In other words, before birth, our souls already knew the truth. The trauma of birth. But something happens at birth. When the soul enters the physical body, it becomes connected to the material world. According to Plato, this transition causes the soul to forget its earlier knowledge. The slide calls this the trauma of birth. The word, trauma, here does not mean physical injury. It simply means a major change. Imagine changing schools after studying in one place for many years. On the first day, you may feel confused because everything is different. Similarly, Plato believed the soul becomes confused after entering the body and forgets the perfect truths it once knew. Notice something important. Plato does not say the knowledge disappears forever. He says it becomes hidden. It remains inside the soul. The mechanism of learning. Now comes Plato's most interesting idea. If knowledge already exists inside us, what is the role of a teacher? According to Plato, a teacher does not fill the student's mind with knowledge. Instead, the teacher helps the student remember what the soul already knows. This is why Socrates asks so many questions. His questions awaken the hidden knowledge inside the learner. Imagine a dusty mirror. The mirror still exists. Its ability to reflect light has not disappeared. It is simply covered with dust. Once the dust is removed, the mirror reflects clearly again. Similarly, our minds already possess truth, but ignorance covers it. Questioning removes that ignorance. Learning becomes recollection. This is why Socrates compared himself to a midwife. A midwife does not create the baby. She helps bring it into the world. Likewise, Socrates does not place knowledge inside students. He helps bring hidden knowledge into consciousness. Plato's famous example. In the dialogue Meno, Socrates demonstrates this theory. He calls an uneducated slave boy. The boy has never studied geometry. Instead of teaching him directly, Socrates asks a series of simple questions. Step by step, the boy eventually discovers the correct geometrical solution by himself. Plato uses this example to argue that knowledge was already present within the soul. The questions simply help the boy remember it. Whether modern philosophers fully accept this explanation or not, the example beautifully illustrates Plato's belief that education is the awakening of the mind rather than the transfer of information. Importance of this theory. Why is this theory important? Because it completely changes our understanding of education. Most people think education means filling an empty mind with facts. Plato disagrees. He believed that education is the process of drawing out the truth already present within the soul. This idea greatly influenced later educational thinkers. Even today, many teachers encourage students to think independently instead of memorizing answers. Although modern psychology does not accept Plato's belief that souls remember knowledge from before birth, his educational insight remains valuable. Real learning happens when students actively discover ideas for themselves rather than simply memorizing information. Conclusion. This slide explains one of Plato's deepest theories about knowledge. Meno's paradox asks how learning is possible if we either already know something or know nothing about it. Plato answers this puzzle through the doctrine of recollection. He teaches that the soul is immortal, existed before birth in the world of forms, and possessed perfect knowledge. Birth causes the soul to forget this knowledge, but it is never completely lost. Through careful questioning, logical reasoning, and the Socratic method, hidden knowledge is gradually recollected. For Plato, education is not the process of putting knowledge into an empty mind. It is the process of awakening the truth that already lies within the human soul. This revolutionary idea became one of the foundations of Plato's philosophy of knowledge, or epistemology, and continues to inspire educational thought even today. Now we come to one of the most important concepts in Plato's philosophy. Until now, we have discussed how we gain knowledge. But now Plato asks an even deeper question: what is truly real? This branch of philosophy is called ontology. Ontology simply means the study of reality or existence. It asks questions like, what is real? What truly exists? Is everything we see the ultimate reality? Plato's answer is very surprising. He says that reality is divided into two worlds. This slide calls it the supreme binary, meaning the two highest levels of reality. On the left is the realm of becoming, and on the right is the realm of being. To understand Plato, you must clearly understand the difference between these two realms. The realm of becoming, the physical world. Let us first look at the left side of the slide. This is called the realm of becoming. This is the world we live in every day. Everything we can see, touch, hear, smell, or taste belongs to this world. For example, trees, animals, houses, mountains, cars, books, our own bodies. Everything around us belongs to the realm of becoming. But why does Plato call it becoming? Because nothing here remains the same. Everything is continuously changing. A baby becomes a child becomes an adult becomes old. A flower blooms today and withers tomorrow. A new mobile phone becomes old after a few years. Even the strongest buildings slowly wear out over time. Nothing in this world is permanent. Everything is constantly changing. That is why Plato describes this world as a world of change, decay, and flux. The word flux simply means continuous change. Knowledge through the senses. Now notice the second point. According to Plato, we know this world through our five senses. We see with our eyes. We hear with our ears. We touch with our hands. We smell with our nose. We taste with our tongue. But Plato asks an important question. Can our senses always be trusted? The answer is no. Think about a simple example. Suppose you place a straight pencil inside a glass of water. It looks bent. Is the pencil actually bent? No. Your eyes have deceived you. Another example. During a hot summer afternoon, you may see water on the road far ahead. As you reach that place, the water disappears. That is called a mirage. Again, your senses have deceived you. Because our senses sometimes make mistakes, Plato says they cannot give us perfect truth. They only give us doxa. The Greek word doxa means opinion or belief. Opinion may sometimes be correct, but it is never absolutely certain. The realm of being, the world of forms. Now let us move to the right side of the slide. This is called the realm of being. According to Plato, this is the true reality. Unlike the physical world, this world never changes. It is eternal. It is perfect. It is unchanging. Plato calls it the world of forms or world of ideas. This world cannot be seen with our eyes. It can only be understood through the intellect, that is, through reason and deep thinking. Imagine a triangle. Can you draw a perfectly accurate triangle? Probably not. Every drawing has tiny imperfections. But in your mind, you understand the idea of a perfect triangle. That perfect triangle is what Plato calls a form. The same applies to beauty. Suppose you ask 10 people, what is a beautiful flower? Each person may choose a different flower. Some may like roses, some may like lilies, some may like lotuses. But Plato says all beautiful flowers participate in one perfect form of beauty. That perfect beauty exists in the realm of being. Examples: dog and table. The slide gives two examples. The first is dog. Around the world there are thousands of dogs. Some are black, some are white, some are large, some are tiny, some have long hair, some have short hair. Although they look different, we immediately know that they are all dogs. Why? According to Plato, every individual dog shares in the perfect form of dog. The physical dogs are temporary. They are born, they grow, they become old, eventually they die. But the perfect form of dog never changes. The same is true for a table. There are wooden tables, glass tables, plastic tables, round tables, square tables. Although they are different, they all share one perfect form of table. The form is eternal. The physical tables are temporary copies. Opinion versus knowledge. Now we come to one of Plato's most important distinctions. The physical world gives us doxa. That means opinion. The world of forms gives us episteme. That means true knowledge. Let us understand this with a classroom example. Imagine two students preparing for an examination. The first student memorizes every answer without understanding. The second student understands every concept and can explain it in his own words. Both may score good marks. But who has deeper knowledge? The second student. Similarly, Plato says seeing physical objects gives only opinion. Understanding the eternal forms gives genuine knowledge. The metaphysical rule. Now look at the statement at the bottom of the slide. It says that physical objects participate in or cast shadows of the perfect forms. This means physical objects do not exist independently. They exist because they share the qualities of the perfect forms. Think of a mirror. The image you see in the mirror looks real, but it depends entirely on the real person standing in front of it. If the real person walks away, the reflection disappears. Similarly, Plato says the physical world is like a reflection. The world of forms is the original reality. The physical world depends upon it. Conclusion. This slide introduces the foundation of Plato's entire philosophy. According to Plato, reality is divided into two realms. The realm of becoming is the physical world that we experience through our senses. It is constantly changing, imperfect, temporary, and gives us only doxa, or opinion. The realm of being is the world of forms. It is eternal, perfect, unchanging, and can only be understood through reason. It gives us episteme, or true knowledge. This distinction becomes the basis for everything else in Plato's philosophy. His theory of forms, his allegory of the cave, his educational philosophy, and even his criticism of poetry all arise from this central belief. True reality is not what we see with our eyes, but what we understand with our intellect. So far, we have learned that Plato divides reality into two worlds. The realm of becoming, the physical world that constantly changes. The realm of being, the eternal world of forms. Now Plato asks another important question. If reality has different levels, does human knowledge also have different levels? His answer is yes. To explain this, Plato introduces one of his most famous philosophical ideas called the divided line, found in Book 6 of the Republic. Think of this line as a ladder. As we climb each step, our understanding becomes clearer and more accurate. The higher we climb, the closer we come to truth. This slide shows 4 stages of knowledge, beginning with the weakest form of understanding and ending with the highest. Let us understand each stage one by one. First stage. Conjecture or imagination. The first stage is called conjecture or imagination. This is the lowest level of knowledge. At this stage, people mistake images, shadows, and reflections for reality. Notice the examples on the slide. They are shadows and reflections. Imagine standing beside a lake. You see the reflection of a tree in the water. Can you touch that reflected tree? Can you climb it? No, it is only an image. Or imagine watching a movie. The people on the screen appear real. They laugh, they cry, they speak, but they are only moving images. Similarly, Plato says many people live their lives believing appearances without questioning whether they are true. Today, we can think of social media. Sometimes people believe edited photographs or false news without checking the facts. They mistake appearance for reality. This is exactly what Plato calls conjecture. At this stage, our knowledge is extremely weak because it is based only on appearances. Second stage, belief or opinion. Now we move to the second level. This is called belief or opinion. Here, people no longer believe shadows. Instead, they observe real physical objects. Notice the examples: animals, trees, physical things. This is better than the first stage because we are now dealing with actual objects instead of reflections. However, according to Plato, this is still not perfect knowledge. Why? Because physical objects are constantly changing. A tree grows, Its leaves fall. It eventually dies. A beautiful flower blooms today but fades tomorrow. Since physical objects change, the knowledge gained from them is also uncertain. This is why Plato calls it opinion rather than true knowledge. For example, suppose someone says, "This mango is sweet." That may be true today, but another mango may taste sour. So this knowledge is temporary. It depends on experience. It is useful, but it is not universal. The visible realm ends here. Now look carefully at the center of the slide. It says, "The visible realm ends here." This is a very important point. The first two stages belong to the visible world. They depend on our senses. Everything below this line belongs to the realm of becoming that we studied in the previous slide. Now Plato asks us to move beyond the senses. He invites us to use reason instead of sight. This takes us into the intelligible world. Third stage, thought or rational inference. The third stage is called thought or rational inference. Here, the mind begins to think logically. Instead of depending on the senses, it depends on reasoning. The slide gives the example of mathematics and geometry. Think about the equation, 2 + 2 = 4. Does this answer change in India? No. Does it change in America? No. Does it change after 1,000 years? Still no. Mathematical truths remain constant. Similarly, a triangle always has 3 sides. No matter where you draw it, its basic properties never change. This is why Plato admired mathematics. It trains the mind to move away from the changing physical world toward eternal truths. Mathematics becomes a bridge between the physical world and the world of forms.